Newsband, daily English newspaper of Navi Mumbai. Today we have with us Dr. Deepa Katiyar, who is one of the leading veterinary practitioners from Mumbai. After completing her master's degree in parasitology from Mumbai, she enrolled herself for her second master's degree in University of Queensland, Australia for studies in veterinary studies. Welcome, Dr. Deepa.
Hi, thank you for calling me on this platform.
Dr. Deepa, you are one of the very few vet professionals in Mumbai who is practicing in pain management in animals. Can you please explain to us what is this technique?
So basically, it's something that I felt that our system lacks in understanding pain in animals. So a couple of years back, and see, everything is instrumented by certain personal experiences when you are dealing with animals which are in pain and you're not able to relieve them and they're not getting the benefits of being comfortable. So if you actually understand pain as something which is a sensation which everybody feels, right? How does it differ that animals will not feel pain? So a lot of times I would see things like while treating animals, they get better, but they are not showing that optimum benefits of the treatment that we do for them. And in the process, like couple of times when I would be traveling, or sometimes I would see these hens that are carried for slaughter, they were carried upside down, and it used to really put me in a ponder, like how are we doing this with animals, and why uh, why don't we understand that they can also be in pain? And then it actually gathered actually gathered to myself that probably we are not able to recognize pain only in these animals, and even if we recognize it, we don't know how to sort of be able to elevate it completely. And my own dog, when he suffered from paraplegia, that augmented everything, like it basically expedited everything for me in my journey towards understanding pain in animals. And then I did a lot of research, and I found out that internationally people were doing a lot of work abroad in integrated medicines or alternative therapies, along with allopathic drug use. And unfortunately, we didn't even have those kind of drugs in the country. And sometimes they were only being used for human purposes and were not being used for animals. Very soon, when I started doing wildlife work and I started dealing with burnt monkeys, so there was a phase when I was getting burnt monkeys every day in my clinic. They were actually electrocuted. The mothers got electrocuted, and then if they had babies, the babies would come when in like completely showing second or third degree burns. And it was horrible, because these animals at least are going to express by crying. But what about reptiles? What about snakes? So that actually pushed me into this path of first of all wanting to understand pain, and then trying to treat it to the best I can to make the sort of what you would say is the life of the animal better and more um, peaceful and livable.
So, which animals can be benefited or treated with this technique?
See, all, like I said, every animal, okay, that walks the earth uh, feels pain like you and me. It's a sensation that only can be understood by the person who's going through that phenomena. So it can be something which is acute pain, which is like suddenly generated out of your body, like a headache, or when an animal gets into a traumatic injury. We can also define pain as emotional pain, which we know that humans suffer emotional pain, but isn't it true, like a lot of pet owners talk about the animals going through separation anxiety, or like feeling pain when a loved one passes away? a lot of people will see their animals brooding, even if their companion animal passes away, or their two dogs together in a house, and one a dog passes away, the other one goes silent, or they don't eat food. So that also emotional pain is there in animals. So a lot of times people thought that only the higher species, like the higher species or the domestic animals feel pain, but that is not true. Even reptilians, because I deal with a lot of snakes, lizards, and of course birds, though we know that these are animals, the mammals and the birds can at least express their pain. But reptiles, they are, people used to say, अरे उसको कुछ भी करो तो emotions तो कुछ face में होते ही नहीं है. But you'll be surprised that there are international gradients for pain, in which it's called a Grimace scale. So a lot of people are sort of, they are experimenting even on reptile medicine in grading scale of pain in animals. So like that, you have a Grimace scale for cats, you have for dogs, and for a lot of other animals that are now actually being set as protocols for veterinarians and even pet owners or animal lovers to understand and recognize pain in this animal. Because first of all, unless you know that the animal is in pain, they cannot talk to us. So knowledge of understanding, uh, for instance, when you have an old animal at home, a lot of times they develop arthritis. This is an example I'm giving. And a lot of our patients will say, oh, you know what, during the winters, the dog just doesn't like to come up to my room. He's just doesn't, he wants to stay downstairs. Probably, he's enjoying the view downstairs. But think about it like that. Just like old people, when they get old, a lot of old people don't like to be mobile and don't like to climb up steps because they get joint aches. Similarly, senile or old senior, sorry, not senile, senior or geriatric patients of ours, when including birds, when they actually get old, they will not go and sit on the perch, or they will not want to climb on top because they are hurting when they are climbing. So maybe the dog is not going to cry and keep moaning, but he will just not do that action which he used to do several years back because probably he is in pain. So these things have to be translated and recognized by pet owners or people who deal, shelter owners or people who deal with animals. Therefore, I thought that it's extremely important first to educate people of recognizing pain, and then obviously trying, with the aid of veterinarians, trying to elevate it.
You also offer physiotherapy and rehabilitation services. Can you please explain what are these?
So in this whole journey of understanding pain, I was pretty surprised when I went abroad, and the kind of facilities that are available for paraplegic animals or animals that have, for some reason, some neuro muscular issues. Now, we all know that even in human beings, when somebody, say for instance, you have fractured your hand or your leg, so it takes about 2-3 weeks or 3-4 weeks for any kind of different kind of fractures to heal, maybe longer. In older patients, it takes longer. But what happens is, at that point of time, when you are having a broken bone or an ailment in which that particular part of the body is not in use, what happens at that point of time? When the part of the body is not in use, the muscles that are covering that bone starts getting atrophied, or because you're not using those muscles, they start thinning down in non-medical terms. And once your bones heal and then you want to start reusing that hand or leg, what do we generally do? We do physical therapies, right? To strengthen those muscles which have sort of been not in use for a period of time. Similarly, with animals, they can suffer from infectious diseases, or they can suffer from certain kind of ailments in which they will not use those body parts for a few days. And then when they start getting better and they want to use that part, how do you help them? So if I tell her, like a human being, lift your leg, hand up and lift it down and exercise, okay, that a human being will understand because it's for his own muscle, like, you're using it for your biceps, for your triceps. But when it comes to animals, you can't tell them, like, raise your hand up, move down. So basically, you need to understand therapies, including massage therapies, water therapies, which are called hydrotherapies, different kinds of therapies that are done in animals to be able to get those muscles and functions which have not been used for a particular time or X time, whilst the animal is not able to use his bone, muscle, and nerve, for that particular length of time. Everything has become atrophy. These kind of patients require physical therapy. So there are different forms of physical therapy. So my journey started in the Animal Medical Center in Manhattan, where I was actually looking at them treat a rabbit basically who had a pelvic fracture, and that rabbit couldn't move, so he was put on a wheel cart. And it was amazing to see that, because my dog was paralyzed for a couple of years and we didn't even have wheel carts here, and there they had like a rabbit on a wheel cart. So it was very amazing to see, and see rabbits hop. So it's so different, they're not even walking, they're generally hopping. So the 3 weeks in which the animal was done physical therapy on just enlightened me completely. And I said, oh my God, this is something that we have to actually understand, that this has to be got back into the country, and it has to be done in a more offered these services to more animals, so that euthanasia should not happen. So a lot of times people used to come to us, "Arey, Billy ko kutte ne kaat liya," yeah, because they just sort of wring the neck of the animal, and it causes a spinal compression. Now compressions are sometimes reversible if there is no spinal cord damage, and these people just didn't know about that. A lot of people don't know, and a lot of vets also don't know, and they just suggest euthanasia because the dog is not walking, or animal is not walking for a couple of days. But I have seen miracles, and I have helped so many animals in these past few years to get mobile, that it just makes me feel so happy to see the smile on those animals' faces. That I'm actually right now treating a couple of cases, dogs, cats, and even snakes. I have treated with alternative therapy, which had spinal issues. We've gone ahead and done MRIs on them. I think we are in a world right now where we just need to sort of experience more things in our space, and be able to translate all the new medical techniques that are coming both abroad and in India to in humans, uh, to be able to put them into animal medicine and help these animals which are having mobility issues.
I can see a couple of monkeys who are hopping here and there. So,
Yeah. So, so basically, what happened? My journey with primates started like around 5 years back. Like I told you, I always had a lot of passion for primates because I felt like nobody is doing anything for them. They would come as paralyzed animals. They would come as captive animals which were kept in cages, because they are very sweet as children and they actually resemble human babies. So a lot of times when they grow up and they are wild, so don't get mistaken by this thing. These are wild animals. Tomorrow when they become big, they will have teeth which are around 1 or 2 inches, and they can actually bite me and pull off my skin. But these are hand raised animals. So one of them is Evie and this is Adam. So Evie basically has, both of them are orphan babies. We take care. We actually I'm a trustee for a shelter called as Kalote Animal Trust, and we have around 600 animals in our shelter, and we rehab wild animals. So basically, if an animal is hand raised by a human being for whatever circumstances, now this baby is was born with issues because the mother died with issues, and this baby had a head injury. It was actually rescued from Goregaon by a couple of building people where the mother just died. The baby suffered head injury and aspiration, so they sent the baby to me for treatment. It took about 3 weeks of care and intense pain management to get this baby to start eating food, to move its jaw and everything, because her head was actually injured, so the facial nerve was partly affected. And also she had diarrhea when she came because she was fed some wrong diet by the time she came to me. But yeah, so it's a process. It was a process with Evie, but now you can see she's grown up very well. And unfortunately, I had to sort of be with her for quite some time. So she got very humanized, and monkey babies do get humanized. Adam came exactly 3 weeks after Evie came. He was rescued by a society member, a girl who's quite mm, into rescues. And this monkey was for a couple of maybe 10 to 12 hours overnight was hanging for his life on a grill of a building society at the fourth floor. And there were other monkeys around it. I'm guessing that the mother passed away. So when this monkey came to me also, I think because it was very dehydrated and not had food for 12 hours, and baby monkeys feed every 2 hours on their mother's milk, it was like a question of life and death because it was a very anemic child. So again, a lot of intensive care happened with these babies. And soon what happens is when you're taking care of these animals and uh, they become like an, you're nurturing them along with treating them. And my work doesn't end in my clinic. The work extends and comes to my house. I have a big house by the grace of God, and I have the blessings of God, and I have a very, very supportive family who actually doesn't mind me doing all these things. So there are always wild animals or even dogs and cats which are immobile and need fostering. So I treat them in my clinic, and the treatment and the fostering continues at home. That is something which I think that uh, a lot of vets should do. Is not, the work should not only get disconnected at the clinic, but I think we are chosen by God to help these animals in a different level altogether. And I feel quite privileged that God has been kind to me in all these years, and I can help more and more animals for this. So generally people always see primates in the clinic is because I just can't avoid seeing them in pain. I get very, 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 very affected when monkeys get affected.
As you also mentioned, but you have reintroduced the concept of wheel carts and also mobility harnesses for the immobile animals. So, can you please explain to us about this?
So, see, what happened was in this journey of pain management and dealing with immobile patients, paraplegia, my own dog Rocky coming into the picture, who was paralyzed, my cat Chichi, and so many other animals that crossed my path with the mobility issues. The thing was that I started doing a lot of work, a lot of research. I did a lot of courses abroad. I traveled abroad, and then I had the good fortune on becoming a board of director for an organization which is an international organization. It's called the International Veterinary IVAPM, International Veterinary Academy of Pain Management, and it's a US based organization which basically teaches both veterinarians as well as animal owners or pet parents to recognize pain and offer the best pain management, whatever the new developments all around the world, to veterinarians as well as pet parents in the best language that they can understand the pet parents. So while I was on that board, so the tenure lasted for 4 years. It was a very, 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 very beautiful journey, and it gave a total different opening in my space of as a veterinarian. I got to meet a lot of veterinarians who were from different international backgrounds, who were dealing with uh, pain management practices in their clinic with whatever is available in their countries. So when I saw the kind of braces, the mobility gadgets, and everything that they are using in their country, I was really taken aback, because all we knew to do in our country was, okay, there's a immobile patient, take a dupatta, wind it around the leg of the animal, this side, that side, and cradle it. But yeah, I got the first wheel cart for my dog a couple of few years ago, actually, maybe a decade ago, for my dog when he was paraplegic. And when I used to take the dog on the road on the wheel cart, people used to be amazed, like they had never seen this thing before. Um, so it was like a thing, like, and then there were people who would stop me and say that, oh, I have a dog like this, can you help me? And those days Facebook and all was not, you know social media was not a huge thing, and there was no way that I could express these things. But there was newspapers, and there were articles that Mumbai Mirror, that some leading newspapers carried, and I was inundated with calls, and I was inundated with people requesting me to help their pets get into these gadgets or help them for mobility services. And then I really discovered that, we need these things to help out animals. And then obviously in my practice, like, I see a lot of immobile cases, and just like a parrot that came in with a hawk issue, all I did was brace the animal the right way, and the animal started walking correctly because he had a spinal trauma. And the patient was like, oh my god, I would have done that to my ankle if I was sick, but I could never think about doing that to an animal. That my bird would require it. So it's just as simple as that, because they don't understand. And you, as a practitioner, you as a person, like I keep telling myself, I'm privileged that I could go overseas. I was funded by my organization to travel, to get knowledge. How many people are chosen for that? I think it's very rare. So I wanted to get the best back to my country, whatever I could. And that's exactly what I did, because Mumbai is the hub for a lot of things. And then once I became more confident with social media, with handling things, I started using Facebook and the other things as, to give an insight to the cases that we were dealing with. And a lot of people started understanding. So then about a few companies came in with this mobility gadgets and braces, and then people started importing them from abroad. So things have changed over the past 4-5 years with all this all these, the Facebook and everything that's being available from Western countries into the country, Amazon. So that became a very easy way for people to get that, and a lot of animals have benefited from that. And I'm glad that I pioneered all those things, sort of pioneered all those things which were existing but which were not actually known by a lot of people.
As you mentioned earlier, you are trustee of Kalote Animal Trust, right?
Yeah.
And so, which are the animals that find shelter in this center?
Sorry, I couldn't hear the last.
Which are the animals that find shelter in this center?
Okay, so basically we have all kinds of animals that we actually keep in our shelter. We have dogs, cats, birds, all kinds of birds, from parrots to kites, which are actually kites, pigeons, those during Makar Sankranti that, you have to get off their wings and one limb. During Diwali, we find owls that are injured because of, a lot of occult practices being done on these poor animals. So we have all sorts of animals, horses, goats, sheep, monkeys in the wild, monitor lizards that we had fostered for quite some time before we released them. So the aim of, and of course cattle shed, we have a nice gaushala over there now with a lot of these animals that are rescued from the slaughterhouses. So basically, this shelter is run by the founder, Mr. Samir Bora, and he does a spectacular job in managing these 600 animals. And we are just like the trustees are basically just helping him do such a wonderful job. And I not only take care of these animals medically, but I offer services wherever we can. So we have a sterilization camps that we do for the village animals, for the village dogs and cats, and we are giving an extension of our services to everywhere that animal needs to be cared for, and it's a last stage home for them, and they cannot be released either into the wild or into the back on the streets because they're either blind or they're maimed. Having said that, we also have dogs which have been abandoned by their owners if they have been sick or have mobility issues. So we have some giant breeds with a lot of people, like Saint Bernards, Great Danes, like, which people just buy. A lot of people like buying these animals, but they don't understand what goes into taking care of them. And then when they get fed up because of XYZ reason or health issues that those animals are having, they dump them on the roads. So we get calls for all these kind of animals, and then we provide them homes. Sometimes we get them adopted if somebody wants to, but otherwise Kalote Animal Trust is more more, you can call it as an end stage home for a lot of these animals which are sort of abandoned, or we have a 40-year-old primate in our shelter who fell down from the 6th floor, and he had a broken hip, and in normal circumstances he took around 3 months to get his hip sort of in action, and to start moving around. I mean, if we don't have, recently we have a transit facility for wildlife, but in that also caregiving services are very different. But this animal, the kind of care and the pain management he required in the first few weeks of his fall, that he had a pelvic fracture. I mean, imagine a human being who's 90 years old going through a pelvic fracture. You know, they have surgeries that go on. We just waited for his arthritic changes to get better, and yeah, and now he is the senior most primate in Kalote, trying to balance all the baby primates over there. It's a lovely thing to see him because he's just an amazing animal. So these are the couple of animals we have in Kalote Animal Trust.
Not many women opt for this profession. Why did you choose to become a vet?
Well, I always say this, I was just born to do this. I don't think I could have thought of any other profession. I think I was just born karmically to become a vet. That's what I can think of. Because this is not something that you develop. This is something that you're born with, this passion to help and save lives. And trust me, it is a very difficult life if you're totally into it, because you have to sacrifice a lot and you have to give up a lot to give your 100% to an animal, emotionally, physically, because if they are maimed or they are handicapped or what, they can never do anything for their life in their lives. It's like having a handicapped child, and you're prepared mentally, right? The only thing here different here is that the lifespan of that animal is few years as compared to a human child, but they never grow up. Even if they are normal, they never grow up. They're always being dependent on you. In the human child, still it happens, they grow up, they evolve, and they move on. But animals, if for whatever reason, they will always have to stay with you, and it takes a huge chunk of your personal space, your personal life, your emotions. Because I decided when I got married, I'm very blessed and very lucky to have a husband like Kalpesh, because it was a complete understanding by him when he met me that it's only animals in our lives after we get married, and besides our extended family. And I didn't want to have children because I felt that after marriage I cannot share my love with a human child. I need to pour everything that I have down, either at my work or with these animals that are in my space. So it's a huge commitment that you give to yourself and your partner. And I think it's just that, and that's why I said that. And I always tell this to a lot of people when they ask me this question. I never pined for a human baby. In fact, I never did that. So a lot of people say, oh, you don't miss having a child who's so compassionate like you. It's just me. I don't. I felt like my whole karma and my whole being is just dedicated to these voiceless animals, and I feel that I was just created for this. Yeah.
You wish to start a center, rehabilitation, physical therapy, and pain care management center. So when and where is this going to come, and what are the facilities this center is going to offer?
So, like I said, life has been very, very kind to me, and obviously there's somewhere in the universe that when you drop a small drop in the ocean of goodness, it the ripples spread everywhere. So Mr. Ratan Tata also heard about me. In fact, I had a private meeting with him on a personal level, and he was quite excited. And actually, they are building up a hospital which wants to include a rehabilitation center. So they took tips out of me, and he also gifted me some a thing that I can't even think about buying because they're so expensive. Yeah, but very soon as most of the gadgets come, and there are few investments that I'm making, I'm very soon going to be moving into a huge setup which is going to be dedicated, having a special part dedicated only to rehabilitation and mobility services. So there we are planning to have a hydrotherapy equipment. Um, uh, we have sort of cold laser technique, which with the highest class of gadgets that are there, and of course my integrated medication, where I do acupuncture for a lot of mobility cases, and it gives huge volumes of success for reversible cases of spinal cord injuries and other mobility cases that we take care of. Then we use the trans-electric nerve stimulator. We have the ultrasound, which basically helps in enhancing circulation for tense muscles. So what you would find in a physiotherapist's office and more, we are going to have in our new facility, which will probably start in a month and a half. So I'm really looking forward to it. It has been a plan that has been pushed back because of the COVID thing, and I just wish that everything, like for me in future, maybe in a year, maybe in a month and a half, everything sort of sorts out, and we are able to have an opening of our place in about a
What is
month or
this
2 months.
located?
It's in Chembur. So basically, I've born and brought up in Chembur, and my facility is very close to my residence. That's another blessing in disguise that I have. So very close to my current clinic. In fact, just opposite of my current clinic, I'm starting my new facility.
What message would you like to give to the pet owners?
Well, right now, I think the message I would like to give is Corona is not transmissible to pets or via pets. Please stop abandoning animals that have stayed with you or that you have brought by your own conscious decision. They are like babies. If you believe in the circle of karma, abandoning these creatures is like abandoning your child. Please don't do anything like that. Take experts' opinions if you are a house who's having a corona patient and an animal there before you choose to take a drastic step on the animal. Contact people. There are helpline services. Please contact them. It's very important for you to understand that this is the truth, that there are no scientific actual reviews saying that these animals, dogs, cats, or whatever, can spread these infections to humankind. So at this point of time, this is my message, which I really feel is very important to reach out to people, because a lot of dogs and cats are being abandoned and pet animals are being abandoned unnecessarily because of, false rumors. So kindly note that, and, keep all your animals safe and healthy, just like how you would like to keep yourself. And when you decide to bring a pet, if it is an exotic animal, understand from a specialist how to keep them rather than just ask the person who's supplying it to you, because a lot of people in India just supply animals. They don't have any backgrounds as to how to keep. For this, I'd like to cite an example. Somebody bought a tortoise because it's a feng shui related thing. A lot of people should understand that your Indian wildlife you cannot keep as pets. These animals that are here are got by the forest department because they were sick, and not trying to propagate that you should keep monkeys as pets or you should have other wildlife as pets. You have to understand that these animals are wild and it's your country's wildlife. So your country has a rule and regulation, just like how other countries have. Don't break your laws of your country by keeping wildlife as pets. That includes green parrots, because they talk, a lot of people do cruelty on them and use them as cage birds and just to make them talk. I mean, how bad is that? Two is tortoises, turtles kept as feng shui items. And this I was telling you, somebody kept a tortoise in a tank of water. Tortoises are not meant to go in water. They will die. turtles are meant to go in water. So people are so naive and they don't understand, and they do these horrendous things by bringing these animals without understanding how to keep them. They have birds, they have 10 birds in a small cage just because they like the chirps of birds in the house in the morning. Don't be cruel to animals. Just because they cannot voice and say what they go through, how much pain they are in, doesn't mean you take advantage. Show that you're the higher species of the universe and be kind to animals. This is my heartfelt message to all those people who are watching this. Thank you so much for having me on this platform and allowing me to speak my mind and my heart out.
Thank you so much, Dr. Deepa. And the viewers, thank you for watching this. Stay safe, stay healthy. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.